Recently, many levels, especially Extreme Demons, that were either mostly or completely made in 2.1 are now being updated with 2.2 camera effects and shader effects. This has led to a lot of controversy regarding these levels, with many arguing that these levels would be perfectly fine without the 2.2 additions because they were made almost entirely in 2.1, some even saying that it is detrimental to the level. So, are added 2.2 effects to Extreme Demons that were made in 2.1 ruining these levels? If you enjoyed today's video, please remember to like and subscribe. It helps the channel out a ton as we're nearing 30,000 subscribers. You can always undo it later, and any help is appreciated. I do want to start off by saying that obviously things can and will change in terms of how we use 2.2 effects. Remember, this update hasn't even been out for half a year, and people have already done some crazy stuff with it in both good and bad ways. Everything from recreating Terraria in the game and making your own games inside of Geometry Dash, to the bottom of the barrel lobotomy brain rot. So far, at the very least, even if there are some pitfalls, we have done much better as a community adjusting to 2.2 than we did to 2.0. The idea of adding some somewhat subtle 2.2 camera and shader effects into your completely or almost completely finished 2.1 project has been carried out in a lot of levels, but the ones that have driven the most controversy have of course been Extreme Demons. Today I want to look at 4 examples of this idea, all of which were executed very differently and with very different effects. These 4 levels serve as examples of how it looks like, implement these changes and see how it affects the level positively or negatively. Let's start off with by far the worst received one, Azer Flare. Azer Flare is a few years old now, with mid 2.19 circles decoration. The reason it's still even in conversation at all is because its current kind of verifier, Aiden GD, refuses to stop buffing the level in hopes of it becoming a top 1. There's also some more controversy surrounding him and his motives for doing this, but hey, one controversy at a time. In the background right now, I'm going to go through a few short, slowed down clips of some of the 2.2 effects that he added to the wave part, and then show them at full speed to show what it looks like in the broader context of the level. And yeah, it's not really the most exciting, it's kind of just a few random zooms from the camera, and a few shockwave effects, with most of the changes in this 2.2 update just making it a much more difficult level, because Aiden GD is physically incapable of not buffing Azer Flare. This comment seems to sum up the general sentiment towards the level pretty well. Redeco. Add random unwanted effects. In terms of how it affects the level, I think it really has mostly just done damage to the level's reputation, because oh my god, this level is in desperate need of a redecoration, and Aiden has just outright refused to actually have a good redecoration of the level. The one I'm showing on screen right now was never finished and cancelled because Aiden was not happy with the progress on the level. So yeah, the Azer Flare update that's official is pretty much just 2 camera effects and a billion more spikes. The main problem that seems to be present with adding these 2.2 effects into Azer Flare is that it's a complete mismatch for its current decoration. Like, if you took Tartarus and then randomly just added a bunch of camera effects to it, it's gonna look a little strange because you're mixing 2 completely different eras of the game, without really putting very much time and effort into making them at least somewhat coherent. I don't think it's necessarily ruined the level, but it definitely doesn't do it any favors, especially because it still is without a redeco. If you thought the tidal wave rate drama was bad, if Azer Flare got verified, which it won't, the controversy would be way worse, because not only has it been in verification for a lot longer, but it's a much older level and therefore much less up to date with our current level standards. So yeah, it's not like it ruins the level, but it doesn't seem to be doing the level any favors, and if the idea was to make it look more up to date and more appealing to the community, it definitely did the opposite of that. So at least in this case, it seems to be pretty bad. Now let's take one that had more of a mixed reception, which is Centipede. Centipede is another Extreme Demon 9 Circles level, however, it's not aimed to be top 1. Currently being verified by Lord Vadercraft, it has a lot more 2.2 effects that are less subtle and more prevalent throughout the level. It's not just like Azer Flare where there's an occasional effect, it's pretty consistent throughout the entire level. It doesn't exactly come across like a lazy, oh, let's just add something new to make it look new, Azer Flare kind of vibe. It seems more like a stylistic choice as it's more consistent throughout the level, and the effects chosen for different parts of the level fit the pulses, fit the intensity of the song. The issue more so stems from the fact that it might make it less enjoyable to play because it sort of rocks back and forth in rotation throughout most of the wave part. To me, levels like Centipede seem to be more where the controversy is at, because it doesn't inherently make the level's decoration worse. The decoration is already mixing a few styles like late 2.1 realistic lava and realistic rocks kind of vibe with some more 1.9 structuring, so it's not completely out there, and it again does match the song pretty well, but it also seems like a fair number of people think that it's sort of a bit much, perhaps possibly because we don't really really see this kind of thing in very many levels. It's usually more subtle. This one I'm more neutral on, as I haven't had a chance to play the level myself because I can't even beat Yatagarasu. I'm not going to be able to beat Centipede anytime soon, so I can't attest to its playability. I think in the case of Centipede, you pretty much just have to chalk it up to stylistic preference. Do you like camera effects being used throughout the level more prevalently to emphasize and complement the song and the intensity of the level, or do you prefer them to be a more subtle addition to it? Which is better for decoration and which is better for gameplay and playability is probably going to be affected by which level it is and how obvious the effect is. The next level I want to talk about that's more of just a blatantly good example is Atomic Cannon Mark III. This level is in very early stages of development and it already looks amazing. I wanted to use this level as a good example for two reasons. One, it uses a variety of camera and shader effects, not just the occasional black and white or shockwave pulse and not just the occasional zoom effect. There's more triggers in there and they sort of vary in how obvious they are to the viewer. And two, the Atomic Cannon series is much more effect heavy in its decoration, so it fits more with the style, and because it wasn't even unveiled until after 2.2, there wasn't any previous expectation for the level to not have any of those 2.2 features. I think this level makes 2 points in terms of this conversation, which is one, the use of the new camera effects feels more natural when the level is already very effect oriented, like there's already a lot of effects, pulses, and whatnot that are or would be in the level without 2.2, and two, people's expectations of the level before any camera effects are added probably influences how they see those new camera effects. For example, someone who saw Centipede after its 2.2 effects were added might think that it fits more naturally into the level, whereas someone who has already seen it in 2.1 might think it feels a bit out of place because they're expecting the old version of it already. And the last level I want to mention as an example is Silent Locked. Silent Locked recently got a 2.2 update, and I'm gonna be honest, I don't really see what's so 2.2 about this level. There are a few uses of some subtle like shader effects, but it's pretty subtle and hasn't seemed to really receive nearly as much controversy as levels like Azer Flare and Centipede. The point I want to make with this level specifically is that very subtle changes with camera effects probably aren't going to affect people's opinion of the level very much. It seems kind of obvious, but I think this is a really good illustration of that because there is some use of the camera triggers within the level, but most of it could just be built in 2.1. And even though it doesn't exactly match the style the most because it's a very 2.0 oriented level even though it was built in 2.1, which is a fine line that I think Skelly did a pretty decent job with this level. The camera effects don't really serve to detriment the level as much as it does for other levels we've previously talked about because it's just less noticeable, and therefore ends up fitting with the level more because it's not something that jumps out at the viewer. So where am I going with all of this, and are 2.2 effects actually ruining Extreme Demons? Surprise, surprise, it's more of a yes-ant / it's more complicated. It completely depends on how it's implemented, on whether it fits the style of the level without the camera effects, or if it doesn't, whether the level was made a long time ago / made to look like it was made a long time ago, or if it's a more recent sort of end of 2.1 level, and whether people are already expecting it to be a level without camera effects, or whether they're seeing it for the first time in 2.2. I'd say overall the idea of just adding 2.2 effects to your 2.1 projects to make them look a little bit more up to date is not a good one. Sure, it can work to some extent and help emphasize certain beats within the song or make the level a bit more intense, but only updating the camera controls and nothing else will make it feel sort of out of place. And it's better to just sort of start a new project in 2.2 with the idea of using 2.2 camera effects going into the level's creation and not retroactively after the level's been finished. So yeah, if you enjoyed today's video, please remember to like and subscribe, yada yada, you've heard it a billion times. I know the Eternus video won the community poll, but a lot of you were saying that this was more interesting to you guys. I will make the Eternus hacking video, I promise, but it will be right after this one. I wanted to give that idea a little bit more time and also maybe some more time to get more hacked records in. But yeah, that's everything. If you want to, you can join my Discord server, link is in the description. And yeah, thank you all for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye!